So today we are going to be painting the PC tank, and you're gonna come with me and hopefully learn a little about how to spray with a spray gun. So I'm mixing the paint here. It's mixed 4:1 plus thinner, and I'm making I think it's about 200 grams here to 50 grams hardener, and then I'm adding the thinner. I mean, it might be 5 to 10%, I think. Now when adding thinner, you need to make the right viscosity so the paint will come out in the right way from the spray gun. Here you can use a D meter, viscosity meter. You drop it down into the paint and then you take it up, and the first time that the stream from the cup, there's a little hole in it, it breaks. That's the right viscosity. So you time it, and it can be something like 19 seconds. And then you go into the data sheet on the paint. There's always this, and you can see how fast it should be, the viscosity. So, when painting, you're going to be needing one of these, a paint gun. This is just a cheap model, but it works just fine. And you're going to be spraying with 2 to 2.2 bars, and that is a lot of air, so you're going to be needing a very big air compressor. Normally you will have an airflow meter here with a control on, and you can put it on 2 to 2.2 bars. You will only see the number when you pull on a little bit on the gun here. Now this controls how much air that goes into the gun, but this you can just let open all the way. Here you can control the fan, how wide it will be. Normally you will operate it all the way up here, so the fan is maxed out. Now the upper and lower part of the fan may not spray so nice, so you have to turn it back a little bit. You can turn it in and you can actually see how the fan is spraying, and then turn it in accordingly. On this particular model we have a needle that is 1.3 millimeters, and that's the most normal in automotive processes. And the needle goes all the way back here. Now this you will have turned back as much as possible, so you will have all the control yourself here. And normally you will spray it with all the way back, normally, most purposes. And that's how a spray gun works. Now my gun has a built-in filter, but normally you will be filtering your paint before putting it in the gun. I just don't have any filters right now, so here the 2K primer is coming on. It could be in an epoxy or something else. I actually don't remember what this is. I don't have an airflow meter at me right now, but I have some experience, so I can kind of like hear that I'm around the 2 bars in air pressure when I'm painting. So that's why it isn't anything on my gun like that. When painting something normal, maybe like a fender or a bumper or some kind of everything. I will always start with all the edges. So start on the edges and then move on to the big surfaces. And you can go from down or up, all after what your preference is. But you have to overlap with 50%. The gun has to be aligned with the surface you want to paint. And you need to have it like something like 10 centimeters or 4 inches from the thing you are going to be painting. And this will also help all the particles to be smashed together if you have a high enough pressure around the 2 bars. So here I'm just cleaning the paint gun. You have to do this a lot. I'm just showing a little bit of it here. If you're going to be painting a lot of stuff, you can get something like a PPS system from PPG. So it removes the whole upper cup, so you just have to clean the little part of the gun where the paint is going in. It will also have a built-in filter. So here I'm just starting mixing 2K high build primer. It's a primer made for sanding afterwards, so you can remove scratch marks from sandpaper from 140 and up, and little dents in the paint. So what that means is, when you are using putty, you have to move up from like 80 and then to like 120 and then maybe 240 sandpaper, removing the scratch mark from the earlier paper every time. And then when you have done this, you can use the build-up primer after you prime the surface. If you don't, then scratch marks over time will be visible through the paint when the paint has hardened all the way. The primer only needs one thin coat, but build-up primer you have to put on multiple times, maybe 2 to like 4 times to build it up, depending on how rough your surface is. Now the high build hardened all the way, and some people will put a guide coat, some black paint over it, just very thin, so you can see how much you have sanded already. But it's time to sand it down, and I'll be using some P500 sandpaper. You could also wet sand it with something like 800. You need this high sandpaper because everything will be reflected in the final paint. You can also use a block here if you have uneven surfaces. And the reason why I'm using the machine is because I'm a bit impatient here. You don't have to if you don't have a machine. just some 3000 here. It's just overkill. You don't have to do that. You can get these very nice sandpapers with foam on the back. They are really good at doing something like this. So here everything has been sanded and ready for paint. And now it's time to seam seal everything. I'm using this 3M seam sealer here. I would go with something like that, some professional seam sealer. Just doing it freehand. It's good for something like this, and if you making like a door panel on the inside, it always has this beam going around all the way. Then you will have to do it in freehand too, and you will cut it off so you make a wider beam, and then use maybe some water with soap or some saliva and make it clean. Here's the other way. You can use 2 pieces of tape on each side, and then you go over it with the finger kind of hard, so you don't have too high bead. And then when you think it's all good, you can remove the 2 pieces of tape, and then you will have this very sharp edge already. And I'm actually going to lay that edge down a little bit. I'm just not filming it here in a little moment. Stuff I needed to paint matte black here. I'm using a spray can. You always just put it on in thin layers. Normally the only thing I use spray can for is something like matte black. clean the surface very carefully. And I'm spray painting outside here, but I'm doing it a time of year. In my country there's no little insects in the air right now, so this can't be done. I wouldn't do it with a car, but if you're doing it in a garage, you can put water all over the floor. That would help too, to not keep debris in the air. And remember, you can feel all the stuff on the surface with your fingers, but you can't see it, so use your fingers always to clean. And if you have it, a spray booth is always the way to go. Here I'm starting to put down the base coat. It's a white color called Diamond White by Ford. I'm putting it on like the other stuff, 50% overspray and like 4 inches from the surface. If it was a metallic color, I would, when it dried, move the gun a little back, put the pressure a little bit down and make this mist over the surface, so all of the metal would be laid down in the correct way, and when it got the clear coat it would look as it should. It's important you hit every surface here. It is not fun when you have painted something and afterwards you'll see this little corner that isn't colored all the way in. Bit cheaper solution for something like this that there isn't any metallic in. You could use like I don't know what's it called, maybe a uni color, and it has the clear coat in it. Then you just lay it on like a clear coat instead. Here it gets a second layer. Here I'm starting on the clear coat, and you have to lay it on with a little bit of pressure here, maybe 2.2 bars or something like that. And also when dealing with clear coat you have to move kind of fast, and I would put 2 coats on, maybe like a little thinner coat, and then the last coat has to be perfect. To go down and look at the surface in a place where you can like see the light come into it, so you can see if there's anything that is a bit like orange peel like in the surface, and then you have to go over it quickly again. And then we are done. And I will carry it inside where it can dry. So I had a lot of fun painting the PC. Now I hope you learned something on the way. Next time we are going to be assembling the tank. If you have any questions to the painting, you can write them in the comment section below. See you next time on Must Build Something.